Hey everybody, this is your girl Jeannie, aka Miss Flossie. I hope everybody's starting out this week pretty good. If not, you tell that storm get beneath your feet and you praise God regardless. Well, I have already uploaded 2 of my videos, and I'm going to tell you my bishop is my inspiration. Yes, he is my inspiration. Because for so long, I've been holding in what God has done for me and not telling nobody. And if it wasn't for my bishop on Bible study night, I would have never really shared. Only people really close to me that know me would have actually really known the things and who I used to be versus who I am now. And never shared it to anybody else to help anybody else. I do this to be an inspiration to somebody else so they can hear God in it, because it's not about me. It's about God and what he did in my life. Because if he could do it for me, he'll do it for you. And that he loves you regardless of everything. Because as you'll see, everything that I've been through, he still loved me. He still thought I was special. He still and he kept on. And because sometimes we could be so naive, so stuck on our own issues and so stuck on everything else and worried about everybody else's opinion. That's where we lie at. We worry about everybody else's opinion and what everybody else think of what we do. That we're so scared to really be ourselves. I'm not no more. Nah. I'm Jeannie. I'm Flossie. I'm gonna love you regardless. You could cuss me out and I'm gonna still give you a hug and say I still love you. Well, I hope I'll be some inspiration to somebody. And like you heard me before in my other 2 videos saying I had a 95% chance of not making it through my surgery. And it's 2019 and I'm still here and cancer free. 2019. And I hope you see God, not me, where God played a part. Then I told you and I shared something so bold about me that I never really want nobody to know. It was about me attempting suicide. But God feels as though so many of his sons and daughters are doing just that because they feel alone and won't open their mouth. And he hears you and he's crying out for you and how I overcame it. And I hope I'll be an inspiration that you see God in it, not me, but God in the situation. And I also told you in the video, I had got myself back together. I had gave myself to God and I was moving in a positive direction, a very positive direction. I was beginning to heal within me. And I was mending relationships with my kids. I was mending broken relationships with other people that I had broken with because I was getting back right. And you know what the trick of the enemy is? When you're getting yourself and spending your time with God, the flesh starts to talk to you. You know what I mean? The flesh starts to talk to you. Because you remember, I was in the world. I was doing some things. And, to me, that was my time of me cleansing myself. And, we get lonely. We get really, really lonely sometimes. And I remember my cousin, I had a conversation with her. And she said, Flossie G, sit your butt down. Just go 2 steps somewhere and just sit down. Because I was explaining to her, I was getting lonely, very lonely. And she, it's country people, got a country singer for everything. And so when she said, go sit down, to take 2 seats and sit down, that's basically, Jeannie, dust that man off your shoulder and get that Bible, or go take yourself out on a date. Yes, you need to date you when you're a single person. Yes, you need to find out who you are when you're single. You got to find out what you don't like and what you really want in a man or woman. And you have to spend that time with God and have that conversation with God. But see, when you get to that place, this is where I messed up. I was getting myself together. I got lonely. I didn't listen to nobody's advice. I listened to the little man on the shoulder. The little man on the shoulder said, I needed some attention. The little man on the shoulder said, you could get right with God and still do what you do. Get what I'm saying? All right. So I ended up meeting a man in 2014. Ladies and men and fellas, pay attention to the red flags. They're there for a reason. Pay attention. I saw all the red flags, but I didn't want to be alone. You remember I told you my little bit about my backstory about me being abused. I was raised by my grandmother, and I suffer from daddy issues and all that. Well, I thought I was working on my daddy issues and my abandonment issues and all the other extra stuff. But God had to show me I wasn't done with you yet. You moved a little bit too fast. And I'm going to show you why I moved a little bit too fast. And I have to thank God for this one too, honey. I ended up meeting a man in 2014. I fell in love too quick. And, well, let me take that back. I thought I was in love. I had it going on for myself. Great job, car, my own place, doing my own thing, just getting it together. And I met this man, and I saw red flags. And I looked past it because I didn't want to be alone anymore. So we started dating and everything else. He had a good job, basically, as women look for a man with a good job. He, educated, good looking, whatever. So, we moved fast, and he asked me to move in with him after a month of dating. Me, because everything was good at the beginning, I was like, sure. But number one sign, I didn't realize, ladies, he would call, text, not like, a text every, every hour, but he would text all the time, want to know my whereabouts, or pop up at my store all the time, something like that. That was red flags. I ended up finding out that later. Well, I moved in with it, and things were kind of good. But you know what? When they said take time to get to know somebody, take time to get to know them. So I moved in with him, and he made pretty good money. I'm going to throw it out there. He made about $6,000 a month. He brought in the house after taxes, $6,000. So when I got to the house, he had nothing in his house. Only thing he had was he was renting it from Rent-A-Center, a living room set, a TV, a bed, nothing else. and you bring $6,000 home a month, you shouldn't be renting anything. You should be going paying cash for everything that you have. Red flag number 2. Well, so I sat down and talked about finances. And do you have a savings? Do you have a budget? Whatever. And he was like, well, I get paid. This is how he explained it to me how he got paid. And I was like, well, you have nothing to show for what you got. Me being the woman I am, I don't consider myself a build-a-boo. But, a good woman would take what she got and make something out of it. So I told him, I said, I'm going to show you, since we in this together, that what you take out, what you bring home a month, that you don't need to be renting from nobody. I'm going to show you that you're going to get you're going to have a paid cash living room. You're going to have paid TVs, your bedroom set, and then everything else will flow. When you get a good woman in your life, everything else should flow. You should have more. You should have more. In relationships, you go ups and downs. You're going to have your good times and you're going to have your bad times when it financially, until y'all come together as one. So he trusts me enough to have me handle the finances. So I began to control the finances. Every time he got paid every fourth Wednesday. Not every fourth Wednesday. Every Wednesday of the week. Sorry. It was every Wednesday of the week. Sorry. And out of his paycheck, I would give him $500. $500. His job wasn't that far from his house, our house at the time. And you didn't really need, groceries was taken out of the money. $500 was basically his spending money that you didn't have to put it in the house, like groceries, no bills, no nothing. That was just straight spending money. And, $500 just spending money. And then you get another $500 the next Wednesday that roll around. So, if you budget yourself right and you're not really going out and you're trying to save. And the first time I did it, and a day he came back and said, I need some more money. I just gave you $500. You went to work and you didn't go nowhere else. So where did you spend $500 at? And he will argue me down. This is my money. This is blah, 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 blah. But you said you were trusting me. So if we're going to be a couple, you need to explain to me, where did you spend $500 at? I just gave it to you. You ain't been nowhere but to your job, and that's it. Did you loan the money out to somebody? Did you, I was trying to prove a point to somebody. Well, I had my own vehicle, had my own thing. So every once in a while, we'll switch up vehicles and drive. And at that time, my mom's sister was still living at the time. And I noticed that I was at the hospital with my mom, and he had called. And at the hospital, I didn't get good reception with my cell phone. And he had called about 20 times. Do you hear me? 20 times. Who do that? Really, who did that? That's another red flag. So he cursed me out once I finally was able to get on the phone with him and tell him what was going on. I was at the hospital with my mom, and it was bad reception. As soon as I was able to get some reception, I called. So what else he did, he used to argue all the time. He will find something to argue about. Another red flag. If you're not an argumentative person and you're very peaceful, and you could just look one way, and then all they start arguing, or you could just pick up your hand like this and they just argue, just find everything to argue about. Then he was jealous and controlling. Another red flag. Well, he convinced me one day to let me drive his car and he drive my car. And this is what he did. And this is the day I should have walked away. I should have just walked away. He totaled my car. Totaled it. Completely. And then pretend he didn't know how it happened. It's crazy. And I was like, you're the only one driving my car. Did you give my car to somebody? Totaled my car. So now my car is totaled. Now I have to depend on him. See where I'm going? I had to depend on him. And when I started depending on him, the car that he gave me to drive had a phone in it. So if he called me and I'm driving a certain part of the road, he can call the car. See where I'm going? That's how controlling. And I was so blind at the time. And because I wanted to be loved. And instead of me taking 2 seats over there and sit down and finish doing what I was doing, and instead I listened to the little thing on my shoulder and I act on something. I jumped to something that I shouldn't have jumped to. And finally, he had me introduce me to his parents. And his parents loved me to death. And he had to go to the store. And as soon as he left the house, his mom and dad began to talk to me. They told me their son wasn't right. His dad told me, he said, you know that song, Take Time to Know Him? He said, that's what you got to do. And then all of a sudden his, son walked back in the house, and I didn't know how to receive that information at all, because I've never had a parent to ever come to me and talk to me about, their child wasn't no good for nobody. Never had that happen. So I'm processing all this in, and then they invite me to go to New Jersey to visit family with them. And so I went to New Jersey, and I ended up meeting his sister. And I met his sister, and me and her went to New York together with another cousin. And as I'm in the van with her, she proceeds to tell me he just recently got a divorce after meeting a girl in 2 weeks. And that and she proceeded to show me pictures. Now, this is her brother now. And she was like, and by that time he had asked me to marry him. And I never gave him an answer, because I was really pondering, and I had already know my answer. Anytime you ask a woman to marry you, she already know if she's going to marry you or not. And I was just, weighing my options. And at that moment in time, I felt kind of trapped, really, really trapped. And, so she began to say, and then I said, well, your brother asked me to marry him. And she's like, oh, no, don't marry him. No. She said, he will ruin your life if you marry him. No, don't do it. Don't do it. So we ended up, and she told her brother when we got back, she said, I really like her. I really, really, really like her. She seems like she's got a head on her shoulder. She's got a, bright future. She's going somewhere. And so, and he knew I was kind of off. And he asked me, he said, what did my sister talk to you about? And I told him, I said, no, it's just your sister just talk, and just be a sister, and we just mingle, we connected. And he was like, you're lying to me. My sister said something. My sister, and I was like, no, your sister didn't say anything. Yeah, his sister said something. But when you really care for somebody, you really don't want to repeat what family has said about them. So you try to protect them. So it wasn't my place to really repeat it. Maybe you may say, I'm wrong, but that's how I felt. I don't want to hurt your feelings at all. And then plus, it was a warning to me, not to you. That's how I looked at the situation. So we get back, and we go on our way back to North Carolina, and we're riding with family, and he starts to argue, he starts to act crazy and everything else, and I'm looking like, even if your sister told me something, I don't have to tell you if I don't want to tell you. And so it got to a point that it was so many arguments, and that his boss thought one night he had put his hands on me because he came back bloody. Because he said he left and he had to go home and talk to me, and he came back bloody. And so she had called the cops to come to my house to see if he had did something to me, and they was wondering where the blood come from. I'm gonna tell you where the blood come from. Ladies, I hope you pay attention to this story. Fellas, I hope you pay attention to the story that I'm telling you, because this happened to me. And I hope it give you some light of take your time to get to know somebody. Please, because when I get through with this, I do not want this to ever happen to anybody that I went through. So when we get back, and life was so stressful, just like I said, his boss thought he did something to me, and it just got stressful. I wasn't being myself anymore. And I went to my bishop, and I talked to my bishop, and I said, Bishop, you need to really sit down and talk to him. And I explained to my bishop, and my bishop had already called it out to him in church that he was controlling. And he had said some things to him. You got to let a woman be a woman. You can't dictate and control every move she makes. And so we had a meeting, and I told Bishop what his sister said to me. And after we sat down together, and he told Bishop, he said, I was supposed to tell him. And Bishop told him, he said, I understand where you feel like she's supposed to, but when somebody really care about you, they try to protect you at all costs. And he said the conversation that your sister and her had, that was their conversation, really none of your business. He said you're trying to control a situation where if she felt free enough to tell you, she would tell you, but what was said between her and her is none of your business. And he got beat red, mad. He got so mad. And Bishop just looked at me. He said, I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to pray for you. So the relationship got worse and worse and worse and worse. And he asked me again, will I marry him? And I told him, I'm old fashioned. This is how I throw it off. I'm old fashioned. You ain't got no ring. I'm not marrying you. I'm old fashioned. You got to have a ring. I'm not giving you an answer. I'm old fashioned, basically. That was just throwing it off, because I was scared at that moment in time. If I had told him no, what would you done right then to me, with the mindset of everything that's going on? And why would you ask me to marry you when you constantly arguing at me, yelling at me, everything? So it got to the point that I'm going to show you where God played a part. And it was a warning for me, but I was naive. It was that last Sunday I went to church, and I made him go to church with me. And he was sitting in church so mad, so angry. And I never understood why and how I made him so angry. I did everything to make you happy, to please you, but you were so angry with me. And so as we're sitting there, and Bishop stops in the middle of service and tells him that I see clasps around your wrist. God said you still have a choice. You don't have to do it. Now, I want y'all to remember this. God said, I see clasps around your wrist. You don't have a choice. Me so naive and stuck in the situation, not paying attention. God was also warning me that something horrible was about to happen to me. Well, his family has a Christmas party every year, and I had a cousin that I hadn't seen in, as I'm gonna say in country words, in coon days. And come down because he went into the military, and we grew up like brothers and sisters, but we were cousins. And so I had him come in to the Christmas party to meet the gentleman I was dating. And my cousin and I, we was joking and sitting there laughing and carrying on. And my cousin went outside with him. And about 15 to 20 minutes later, my cousin comes back in and sits down beside me with a different face. Like, cuz I gotta tell you something. And my cousin began to tell me, he's not the same man that you introduced me to when I, got here. I didn't understand at that moment in time what my cousin was trying to say to me at all. I didn't understand at all. And my cousin kept saying, he's not the man you think he is. He's not the man that you introduced me to. And my cousin didn't want to leave me. He wanted to stay with me. So as the Christmas party went on, and it was the barber and beautician ball weekend also around that time that year. And there was a lot of celebrities in Raleigh. And a lot of, I'm a little fashionista. I like hair, I like makeup, I like all that. So at that moment in time, I was rocking my own hair. I did my own hair, and my cousin had wanted to go out. And I ended up convincing the dude I was dating. My cousin wanted to go out, and we went out. And we ended up going to this place in Raleigh. And as we were going in, we didn't know there was a bunch of celebrities and stuff there. And a photographer and a celebrity saw me walking, and they walked up to me. And the photographer and the celebrity said, I want a picture with you. And the celebrity turned to my cousin and looked at my cousin. He said, I hope you don't mind if I take a picture with your girlfriend. And he said, I will invite y'all into this party here. And it was a private party with a whole lot of celebrities there. And my cousin said, I'm gonna just be polite. I'm not a boyfriend, I'm a cousin. He was like, oh. And he said, that's her boyfriend. And by that time, my boyfriend was beat red, mad, like angry because the dude addressed my cousin. Okay, who gonna know you my man? Who? He sees two gentlemen. So the first gentleman that's closer to me, he's gonna talk to you first. So, and he told the celebrity, no, you can't take a picture with her. And he told the photographer, I don't care. I better not catch you taking a picture of her. No, you can't take one. But they were still nice enough to invite us in the party. So we ended up going in the party, and we went in the party. And as I'm sitting there, my cousin was like, I ain't bringing enough money. I ain't trying to get too drunk. I got to drive. And my boyfriend was talking about, I'm going to get drunk. And I'm going to have some fun. So as my boyfriend leaves, I talked to my cousin. I said, you know what? One of us has to be the sober one out of the situation. I said, if he buys me a drink, I'm going to give it to you. Since you ain't got enough, you be drinking on me tonight. And my cousin was like, you for real? I said, yeah. I said, I got to be sober. I have to be really, really sober. Because if he's going to get drunk, somebody's got to stay, sober. So he kept buying me drinks. I would pass it over to my cousin. He kept buying it. My cousin was like, oh my God, he's buying. I said, well, boy, just drink up. Just drink up. But we ended up getting thrown out that party because of my boyfriend. The photographer ended up getting a picture of me, and the celebrity did too when he was at the bar, and that escalated, and so we ended up having to be escorted out of the party. So we ended up going next door, and we went in there next door, and we were sitting in VIP, and my cousin said, "Well, I'm going down there," and my boyfriend looked at me. He said, "I'm gonna show you something that you ain't never seen tonight." That was another warning. So as I'm sitting there, there's go-go dancers on the pole, whatever, and the girl was dancing. I said, "Please," and I'm sober. And I tell her, I said, "Go ahead and entertain him. I don't care." And I'm just sitting there, just sober, looking at everybody. And I just skim the room. I just look around the room. I just looked. And as I looked around the room, it felt like Satan himself was looking at me. I looked to my left. There was a guy, had a ball cap on, and you couldn't see his face. You couldn't see his eyes. It was just like pitch black. And then I looked to my right. There was another person, but I couldn't see his face, and it was just pitch black. And I felt this overwhelming urge that I needed to leave. I needed to leave. And I felt like God was trying to tell me, "Jeannie, it's time to go." It was really time to go. And I listened to it, and I looked at my boyfriend at the time. I said, "We got to go." I said, "I got a bad feeling." I said, "Something bad is about to happen. It's just, I got to go home. We got to leave. We got to go. We just got to go." And I couldn't find my cousin at the time. And I found my cousin, and I told him, I said, "We got to go. I have a bad feeling that something bad is about to happen. We got to go." And so we got gone. We get back to his family house. My boyfriend's so drunk, he comes out of his shirt, his shoes, started talking crazy to the point he got in a fight. He hit one of his cousins in the face, and they told him he had to leave. But then one of his cousins and his sister was scared for me. And I said, "Oh, I've been around him drunk before, so I'm not worried. He's just gonna pass out in the car on the way home. So I ain't worried about it." And they was more worried about me. "Are you sure?" And I said, "Yeah, he's gonna be straight. He's gonna be good, whatever." So I had my cousin drive. Well, they was been drinking. Yeah, he drove drunk. But I followed behind him to get him to a gas station. And he promised me he was gonna sit there at the gas station and stay and go to sleep. And when he's sober up, he'll drive. He said, "I'll make that promise to you. I promise you." So I ended up leaving him at the gas station. It was a Sheetz in Raleigh. And I ended up heading to Wilson, North Carolina, to my boyfriend's parents' house. And as we driving, and I tell my boyfriend, I said, "You need to call your parents." And by that time it's 12 o'clock. And, elderly, they be in the bed. But, usually when you get there late at night, they have a hard time, getting up, and it's the time. But if you call them in advance, it helps out a lot with elderly people. And so I told him to call his parents, and he's like, "Well, my sister probably already called and told him I already made a butt out myself." And I said, "It doesn't matter if your sister already called and said that you made a butt out yourself, but just let them know that we're on our way, and I'm only an hour out." And then he was like, he kept telling me no. Then all of a sudden, I was driving his car, and all of a sudden he asked me to call my cousin, and it's pitch black. I ended up calling my cousin, and in the same sentence that he told me to call my cousin, he told me not to be talking and driving at the same time. And I told him, and he had raised his voice at me. And I told him, I said, "You're not going to raise your voice at me. You're going to talk to me in a normal tone voice. I'm not going to take you yelling at me. You just need to go to sleep." And then by that time I said, "Well, I'm going to call your parents to let them know that we're on the way." And he was like, "Well, we're just going to break in." I said, "No, your dad done changed the locks to everything, and we're not breaking into nobody's house. No, I'm just going to call." and he flips out. Flips out. And this is the mistake that I did, but I don't regret it, because at the moment in time I thought it was best. So he demanded me to stop the car. I'm going 70 miles an hour, and I did not want him to yank the wheel, because if you had yanked the wheel, you never know. It could have turned tragic. I might not have been here today. It could have turned tragic than what it was. So I ended up pulling over to a furniture store in the middle of nowhere. Well, I don't know where I was at. Only thing I know about that time, I was about 30 minutes away from Wilson. I don't know where I was at. And he proceeds to get out the car. And I knew right then it was getting ready to turn ugly. And he opens my car door. And by that time, I done had grabbed the steering wheel and held onto it and planted my feet. And he began to yank me out the car, but he couldn't get me out. And the mistake that I made, I ended up shoving him, trying to push him out the car to shut the door. And I was going to leave him. I was going to call the cops. And that was a mistake, because after he moved out the way, he grabbed me and he yanked me out the car. And when he yanked me out the car, he started beating on me. And when he started beating on me, I got away from him. And he jumps in the car and he hits me with the car. And that's when it hit me. It was really life or death for me. Really. He hits me with the car, and he pulls up and gets out of the car. I'm talking to myself, Jeannie, if you don't get up, he gonna kill you. You got to fight more than ever right now. And I got up. And to this day, I don't understand where the strength came from. I got up and we fought. I mean, we fought. But the thing is, I woke up inside the car. Don't know how I got there, but I woke up inside the car, and I was in the floor of the car in the front seat. And I can feel the car going so fast. And I looked up to him, and I can barely move, and I was hurting so bad. And I kept pleading with him, because I'm a mother. I have 3 kids. Are you going to take me from my kids? Are you really going to do this to me? And he kept telling me, tell me how much you love me. Tell me how much you care. And as I look at him, his eyes were pure black. And I began to pray. And I told God, if I have to die by this man's hands, I accept it. I really accept it. And the next thing I know, the car comes to a slamming halt right after I say that prayer. And he looks at me, and his eyes are just as black as coal. You know I could have killed you right then. And he throw the car in reverse and swing it. The next thing I know, I can feel the car swaying this way, and it hit something head on. Boom, I'm in the floor in the front seat. And I said, God, I got to get strength to get out this car. I got to get out this car. I got to get out this car. Not really realizing how bloody I was, how ripped my clothes were, not knowing nothing. And I got out the car with all my strength. I started screaming for help. 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 And he jumped on me again. And by this time, he had thrown me back in the car. I was out again. And took off in the car. And the next thing I looked, we was at a gas station. And I jumped out the car. And I ran as hard as I can inside that gas station. And I told that clerk he was trying to kill me. By then, I didn't know how bad I was, how bloody I was, how my clothes were, or nothing. I didn't realize at all. And I went in that bathroom and I got on my knees and I prayed to God. I said, please send me some help. Please, God, send me somebody right now. And I have to thank that clerk, because when I came out that bathroom, the police was there. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you see what I'm trying to tell you in this testimony that I have. He tried to kill me. I seen all the red signs, the red flags, sorry. I saw all the red flags and I ignored it. I was so desperate looking for love and attention than taking 2 seats and sit down. Sometimes you got to wait on God for the woman or man to come in your life. Not to be so eager for love. Kind of find out when my cousin meant to tell me that he saw him snorting cocaine when he was drunk off alcohol and high off cocaine. Come to find out he was a cocaine user. Come to find out he was a rapist. Yes, you heard me. Rapist. He had brutally raped a 13-year-old girl. And you know how I found out? Standing in front of the magistrate to press charges, get his warrant, because he fled. He fled. They caught him in Greensboro. He fled to get a warrant out for his arrest. The magistrate told me he wasn't even supposed to be living where he was living. Now, if I had listened to my cousin, angels, remember I told you, angels, if you had said take 2 seats and sit down, never would have happened. Take your time to get to know you. And I hope you see where God played a part. He warned me. He showed me all the red flags. But I wanted love. Told you I suffer from abandonment issues. So anything I get, I cling to it. I don't want to let it go because somebody let me go a long time ago. Work on you. Get to know you. Love on you. Date you. When the time is right, God will send him or her to you. You'll know. He'll give you confirmation. Like I said in my videos, it's called Road to Redemption. If you can see, to put the puzzles together, my illness, my suicide, my attempt at love, but the wrong love, and the lessons that I had to learn along the way. Because the first 2, I was so much in the world, This one, I was trying to get it right, but I wanted something else and not really paying attention what was the deeper issue within me. I was searching for love in the wrong places. Get to know you. I keep saying it. Get to know who you are and love on you. Well, I hope I be an inspiration. And if you know a female or male, because males go through it just as bad as we do, ladies. They get in abusive relationships. And they feel as though they can't talk to nobody because they're a man. And it make them seem weak. Nah, you're not weak, brother. Not at all. It takes a man not to put his hands on a woman. Share it if you know somebody is going through a situation that I went through. And I want to hear other testimonies that God has saved you from. Well, I hope y'all have a blessed day. And I will be making another video. I told you it's going to sound like a movie. But I hope somebody really listen to what I'm saying and not think it's just a story that I'm trying to share about me. It's not about me. It's about my Heavenly Father trying to reach his son and daughters. Well, I hope y'all have a good day.